Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night. I'm your host, John T. Bulls, here tonight with some amazing guests on stage and in the studio to discuss Episode 2 of Strange New Worlds, Children of the Comet. We're here tonight to bring life to a conversation about Uhura and her doubts, Captain Pike and his certainty, fancy meals with coworkers, and how psyched the shepherds must have been to have something to do while following Mahani. And of course, we're glad to welcome our lineup of voices to the Open Pike Night stage. As always, we want to hear what you think about each new episode of Strange New Worlds as they drop. So when you watch the episode on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, if you have something you want to share on the Open Pike Night stage, please record an audio clip, 90 seconds or less, and send it to openpike@gmail.com by Sunday morning. You have 3 days to send us 90 seconds and take your place on the Open Pike Night stage. If you want a reminder, go to @OpenPike on Twitter and subscribe to a weekly newsletter there. The button is just below the bio. When you subscribe, check your junk mail or promotion folders. It seems like some of the newsletters are ending up there. Joining me today are my co-hosts, the man whose presence is blasphemy, but honestly, we don't care. Host of Sudden But Inevitable, Jesse.
Come on, let's see if we can find some common ground here, Producer John. There's got to be something we can work out.
And the man who's on a foretold path through Trek, bringing positive reviews to some and dick jokes to others, host of the Green Shirt Podcast, Cameron.
Just for the record, I want to acknowledge that I am in my dress uniforms and everyone else here is adorned in halter tops, belly buttons on full display.
And today we have a special guest, the man who knows the name of the kid he's saving from the lack of knowledge about movie classics because the kid is his son, Zoe from the Backlook Cinema Podcast.
And for the record, I do not know when I'm going to die.
And I think nobody should. We got a pretty full lineup tonight, and we've had some very last-minute submissions, but we managed to give them a slot on stage. First one in, we had our friend Joe from Funnest Frontier, who wrote in, Children of the Comet was as close to a perfect episode of Star Trek. Celia Gooding as Uhura is perfect. I love that it came down to her figuring out it was music that it responded to. After just 2 episodes, I'm comfortable saying that the casting for this show has been perfect, and I love everyone already. And that's Joe from Funnest Frontier Podcast @DexLower on Twitter and on TikTok. What'd you guys think about Uhura?
Oh, she was fantastic. I mean, she's the love of my life all over again.
Yeah, I remember, just from the trailers being like, do we need legacy characters? But I mean, Uhura is a good one to kind of re-examine from a modern lens, and yeah, like I said last week, they are nailing her. I love everything they've done with her.
Well, and they really seem to understand, right? Like, we got to give this character something to do immediately because the original series took its sweet time in doing so. But I have to say, totally agree with Joe in the casting department. I believe that is an argument I have made already on the show. I don't think Star Trek has failed at a casting in recent memory. Personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like Twitter, a lot of people are responding to the fact that, hey, she got to do more in this one episode than like the whole first season of the original series. They're using a legacy character well, like you said, Cam. Next up on stage, we have a returning friend.
This is Rosie, also known as Rosalita. the Children of the Comet episode was really, really enjoyable for me. As a person of faith, their struggles were really interesting in trying to understand how the actions of Spock were already in the plan of the comet, whatever they know the comet as, some bringer of life, taker of life, creator. I just really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the fact that we focused a lot on Uhura. She is adorable, continues to be impressive. Her captain's dinner encounter was really nice, telling her story, singing her song. I really enjoyed the harmonic scene between her and Spock. That was just absolutely beautiful. And I really enjoy Spock and all the various talks. First about stepping away from Starfleet if it's not her calling, and ending with if you choose to, you would make an excellent Starfleet officer. Absolutely wonderful episode. Looking forward to more.
And that was our friend Rosie at Rosalita9899 on Twitter. So, does anybody have any strong thoughts about the faith aspect of this episode? Because, Jesse, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start there. I actually think that's one of the most interesting facets to Captain Pike, is that he is a Starfleet captain that has not only encountered faith before, but sort of grew up with faith. And we know that from his time in season 2 of Discovery, that his father was, I think, a theology professor and would argue about those kinds of things at the dinner table. And Una has said something along the lines of Captain Pike loves to have his opinion changed, and he loves to hear your point of view and this, that, and the other thing. So to have a character immediately appeal to his respect for faith, I think is a great step to take with this character. They have this shepherd, and I have to point this out. Our friend Rosie first came to my podcasting life when I was on Sudden But Inevitable covering Firefly. She was actually in the movie Serenity, so she has been the shepherd of Sudden But Inevitable. That's sort of the title that we gave her, so I think it's really cool that she got to call in on an episode of Star Trek that has shepherds in it. But to have the shepherds basically immediately say, hey, you just said that you're reasonable, so maybe consider the fact that my faith is well-placed and that you don't have this whole picture, right? It is a beautiful confrontation, so to speak, for the captain to have this early in the series, and I really liked that scene.
I don't think that when they rarely addressed it, I don't think faith was really done well until Deep Space Nine, and that was a really specific kind of religious confrontation more than anything. This struck me as like maybe the most skillful representation of faith as just an aspect of a lot of people's lives, and belief in that faith, did it lead to a shooting conflict pretty quickly? Yes. But did it also de-escalate that shooting conflict pretty quickly? Yes. And I think it was just really skillfully done. And I don't have much of a faith-based upbringing. It was more forced on me than anything and decided for me. And as soon as I could make the decision not to, I did. But I just really enjoyed the way they handled it.
Well, I think for me, the thing that I enjoyed the most about it, to your specific point, John, is that there are multiple instances of faith in this episode that don't necessarily have to do with a spiritual faith, right? Spock is saying, hey, look, we have faith in you. You passed all the tests. You're here because you're supposed to be, right? Like, just trust yourself, trust your own process because we do. And it's, Pike telling Una, like, trust me, I have faith that what I have seen is true. I can't tell you how I know it's true. I know that it's true, and I'm going to make it happen, and it's okay. I'm working on dealing with it, but it's okay, So I think that you are right when you say that this is the best handling of the concept of faith in Star Trek probably ever, because it doesn't pigeonhole the concept. I think it gives it more breadth, so that because you could argue that religious faith is like in direct contrast to most of the ideals that Star Trek usually portrays, right? So I like them illustrating that it isn't, and that it's actually part of the ideals that Star Trek portrays.
And Sam Kirk illustrates how sometimes having faith in your actions can backfire.
Yeah. Almost. I saw that and I was like, well, he can't die now. I refuse to accept that he dies right now. And I was
I hope they
relieved that
kill
he
him.
didn't.
I hope they kill him in every episode.
That would be amazing.
You and the entire internet.
Yeah.
It seems like.
That's not an original thought, but it's an amazing thought.
Like, they need to do it. I hope they call him Kirky. I'd be okay with it. I did think it was funny because we all assumed in the trailers that was Pike. And we were like, come on, we thought Pike was smarter than that. And it turns out we were right. Pike is smarter than that. That's a Kirk.
Zoe, what did you think?
Oh, well, to piggyback on what Jesse's saying about what Spock having faith in Uhura, not only because he believes in her, but really she was the only one who could resolve the situation because nobody else could do it. And this is the second time that I've seen in Star Trek that Spock has relied on Uhura to do what she's expert at because nobody else could do it. So the first time was in a TOS episode where the communication system was down. And so Uhura was the only one who could repair that equipment in order for them to get up and running again. And that's when Spock said to her, because he was like trying to rush her, like basically he was like, hurry up and get it done. And she was telling him that she was doing her best, right? She was, because everything was smashed. And he said that he could think of no one on the Enterprise that could do it better. So he basically just let her be. So
great moment for the 60s.
Right. And so
for the time period.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was glad to see that kind of come back and it kind of echoed basically Uhura's abilities and her competence. And the other thing about Faith, I felt like even though you said that Pike was respecting of their religion, he was definitely struggling with it, right? He had to make some mental adjustments. And then the other thing was that I think the people, I forgot, the shepherds, that's what they called themselves. So the shepherds at the same time believe that everybody believes in this faith, or they should believe in this faith. They're not exactly religious zealot, but when they approach other species, as far as they're concerned, all the other species need to adhere to their religion, and they're not necessarily respective of their of anybody else's belief system but their own. But
they are we were here first.
Yeah, basically.
Well, and speaking of, like, I love the line, he says something about, like, we don't even know why we do this anymore.
Right,
and just from, like, a writing standpoint, you're like, oh, well, there it is. That's going to come back later on. And it doesn't. And in a good way, I think that's, like,
but it
handled it well. It was a little bit of a red herring, but also applied to Faith very directly.
Cameron, I actually think that this is a deeply planted seed of serialization in space. Let me just phrase it that way.
a space seed, so to speak?
You could phrase it that way if you preferred.
All right. Well, next up on stage, we have a couple more guests. First up is Josh, at Josh Alder on Twitter.
Well, I'm really enjoying this series so far. I've been a long time Trek fan, and the original series was always my favorite. And I think going back to the Pike era is just really interesting because we know what happens to Pike. We know how he ends up, but we don't know how he got there because we've seen so little of him. And I'm really enjoying seeing Uhura as a cadet. And I think that, kind of showcasing her as somebody who, didn't want to be in Starfleet and is learning what her role is there is really fascinating because we know through the entire series and the movies that Uhura becomes one of the legends of Starfleet. And there's so many times when she saves the Enterprise's crew because of her very specific skill set. I also really like how nimble the Enterprise is in this episode. It's like we have never seen the Enterprise, the original Enterprise, just so able to navigate through space so cleanly and with such agility, and I'm just really enjoying it. This show, 2 episodes in, I'm already just a huge fan, and I cannot wait to see where it goes from here.
Hey, Open Pike Night. I loved episode 2 of Strange New Worlds. I am a huge Uhura fan. So I love what Nichelle Nichols did with the very little that she had. And Celia Rose Gooding is doing a fantastic job picking up the torch. This was a wonderful episode that incorporated her singing, her relationship with Spock, which we touch on in TOS, and I wish was delved into a little more. I do love their friendship and that kind of mentor-mentee relationship that they have. That carries on in TOS. So nice to see its beginnings here. I also really enjoy that this reminds me of TOS with none of the misogyny. So, as I said on Twitter, so there's that as well. To bring Beverly Crusher into it, as you have challenged me to do, because you know that the Good Doctor is one of my favorite Trek characters. Gates McFadden tweeted about how much she loved the first 2 episodes, and Anson Mount replied on Twitter. So that was pretty awesome. I do think that Beverly Crusher would love Captain Pike because he doesn't care about the Prime Directive, as we saw in this episode, where he's like, we're moving that asteroid. I don't care if we're interfering. And also, you know, on a sad note, like Uhura lost both her parents, and so did Beverly. So just a little Beverly Crusher connection there for the week, and I'm really enjoying the show, and can't wait till next week. Live long and prosper.
Our good friend Michelle returning to the Open Pike Night stage again at OnTheRock81 on Twitter. Some very good points.
The Beverly Connection is now going to be my new favorite segment for our show.
The Beverly Connection is a fun little bit. I know I said last time how much in the opening credits I enjoyed seeing the Enterprise at rest, but holy crap, I love seeing the Enterprise move in this episode.
Should we set a time limit for this? Because this could be the whole episode, right? I mean,
Well, let me.
I'll take turns.
Let me speak on that. It's different. It's different from like most other depictions, especially in the original series, because like Star Wars, when they talk about evasive maneuvers, they go slightly to the left, and that's as evasive as they get. And in this episode, it's the first time that we really see it move because it's in space. There's a lot of room in space. It's tiny compared to the other ship. So relative to the other ship, it's really moving about. And we just watched Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And even then, it's like kind of like slow moving because they're treated as Navy vessels, like moving through volumes of water and not like a nimble spaceship in flight. So that was really refreshing. I really enjoyed that. It kind of reminds me of when people play Star Trek Online and how they fly their ships in an online environment. It kind of looked like that.
Yeah, I mean, not only the nimbleness, which I did love, which I think we get quite a bit of in the Kelvinverse movies, but like the uniqueness here was the way it moved. Like it moved in this herky-jerky fashion that almost kind of looked stop-motion-y. And so at first I was like, oh, are they just trying to call back to maybe the model era? But I think that's actually more realistic of how a giant ship would move in...
There are children appearing behind Cameron right now.
There's 2.
Not of the Comet. They're just regular human children. These are not Comet children.
They beamed right in.
We found Bowser.
You found Bowser? Oh my goodness. All right.
For anybody listening, this is very adorable. We're not mad at Cameron at all. Yeah.
When you're available, when you're available, we really need your help right away.
Okay.
He is like killing it.
Oh my goodness.
Times. There's like fire.
Bowser's always the hardest.
Yes. But
Okay. Okay.
Way harder.
Way harder. Bowser's harder than a Troopa. Okay. Can you close my door, please? Bowser, harder than a Troopa.
Absolutely.
But I think that's more realistic of how a large spaceship would move in space because it has to it's sudden thrusts to the left and right, and it was very cool. I liked it. I liked how it, and it also it added a little bit of danger. It felt more like someone was behind a joystick, a cockpit. I don't know how their screens, but I mean, it felt like someone was actually piloting it as opposed to like just set in some coordinates and let it go off by itself.
Couple things there. First of all, every evasive pattern that is not evasive pattern Ortegas Gamma 1 can go to hell forever because that is the best evasive pattern that has ever existed. I'd like to point out that if you were to shorten that, it would be evasive pattern OG1, which is like just... That's really cool.
Well, to that point, do we think that was the exact evasive pattern they used in Star Trek 2009 when they did the barrel roll?
Well, I think that was more of a Kirk.
They were both the barrel roll
to spin, but this was a barrel roll combined with a I don't know what it's like, a half loop, right, where the Enterprise flipped over backwards into a barrel roll, and then used that to swing past. God, it was beautiful.
So they did a half Ortega in 2009.
Yes, it was 0.5 OG.
Okay.
Do you guys remember the first time that you saw The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers in theaters, and it started with a flashback to Gandalf in Moria about to fall, and then you realize, oh, this shot is lasting longer than it did in Fellowship, and now it's following Gandalf, and oh shit, he's pulling out his sword, and he didn't fall, he jumped, and he is chasing this demon from the very world itself to save his companions, and I'm tearing up just talking about it right now. That is the feeling that I get every time the Enterprise is shown and the camera just stays with it instead of cutting away as soon as something needs to happen. This episode cemented Strange New Worlds in my heart as the Gandalf harassing a Balrog through the center of the damn planet of Star Trek, and it shows me things that I have never seen from a Star Trek, and for that reason, this is possibly my favorite episode of Star Trek in the last 10 years. Somebody else talk, please.
I have always said that Star Trek battles got better than Star Wars space battles as soon as Deep Space Nine came around and the Dominion War. This sequence to me really reminded me of two things. One, since we're going to be talking about some classic games, the video game Descent I used to play. I don't know if anybody else played that, but that was a fully three-dimensional flying game. I was like, oh, I'm getting huge Descent vibes off this. And also the first Kingsman, the Secret Service movie, where they kept the camera centered during action scenes on the main character and everything else was moving around them. And I definitely got some vibes of that following the Enterprise and watching space move around it also as it was doing the evasive maneuvers. And I appreciated both.
Yeah, also, they kind of stayed away from the trope of the exploding panels and throwing rocks on the set and to simulate damage. They didn't do that.
They glitched now. I love that.
Yeah, they didn't do that this episode. I'm pretty sure that we'll see it, though.
We did get some very conveniently placed columns of steam, but I am not complaining about that personally. Right. I love those.
All right, who wants to take the first Uhura Spock connection reminiscence? Because we're going to have a lot of that in this episode.
Well, so I don't want to say that she's sweet on Spock or whatever, but she was definitely looking at him. She definitely noticed Nurse Chapel kind of hitting on Spock. Right, she noticed that, and I think that a woman who is attracted to Spock might notice that. There was a little bit of attraction in the original series, and then in Star Trek the movie, they just go all out. They're just they're fully engaged with each other. But you kind of see the spark of that in this episode, the way Uhura looks at Spock and the things that she notices about him.
All right, let's hear from our next guest on stage.
Hello, folks. Agent Scott here from the Spy Hards podcast. Just wanted to firstly thank you once again for letting me boldly go onto the Open Pike show last week to talk about the premiere episode of Strange New Worlds. But I wanted to talk about this week's episode, Children of the Comet. So I opened my hailing frequencies to send you my thoughts. I thought this was a wonderful episode and a very good follow-up to what I think is a very successful launch to the show. This one felt very much akin to a classic episode of Star Trek. Miscommunication leads to a problem, but our team will rally together to overcome. Pretty much a classic setup for many episodes of the original series, and I think this works perfectly with this new crew. I think, I wouldn't say an instant classic. There were some bits I would point at, but overall I had a really good time. So I think it actually might be a better episode than the first. Plus, of course, we got the beginning of the classic Spock and Uhura banter that we saw in the original series, and I loved seeing the Enterprise flying around in space. But I wanted to leave you all with a question. As it seems the show is making each episode about a character, Pike in the first, I think this is clearly an Uhura episode, which character are you most looking forward to exploring in this season? Take care, guys, and as always, I'll see you among the shadows.
Agent Scott breaking the protocol of silence and bringing us some thoughts from the Spy Hard podcast at Spy Hards on Twitter and guest host of last week's episode of Open Pike Night. Which characters are you guys looking forward to the most, Cam?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, what we've learned about Uhura and the way it connects to, again, her legacy, the weight of that in our minds has been really great. La'an is definitely the one I'm kind of most interested in because it seems like she's going to have the most meaty backstory, perhaps. But I think the person I just kind of want to see more of is Nurse Chapel. She continues to delight me in this episode. Just kind of her like bubbly abrasiveness with the crew is super fun to watch. I don't know how much backstory, how much more there is to learn about her, but I imagine in a show like this, there is something. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Jesse, how about you?
So to the point of the connection between Spock and Uhura, I think it's easy to read both of these characters. Spock maybe not as directly because Spock is, the other in the room sort of a thing because he's half human, he's not full human. But I think it is easy to read Uhura's character specifically as neurodivergent. And she's, oversharing when she shouldn't be. She's giving too much personal information at a time that's not appropriate because she's just excited to be there and a little bit nervous because she's also like, should I be here? There's other people that really want to be here. And Spock is able to be like, whoa, look at yourself from the outside, calm down and chill a little bit, okay? Like, you have talent, just relax. You don't have to give every detail all the time, just breathe. And then she actually provides the same thing for him, but in reverse. She's like, oh, so you were getting flirted with? And he's like, what? When? So it's like anybody who has ever felt mentally different from most folks, right, knows the value in finding a friend that gets you. So I think that is a beautiful piece of this relationship, and I hope that it stays that way and doesn't become what it was in the 2009 movie. Now, I don't fault the 2009 movie for that. I think it needed something, and I'm fine with it. But I think in this series, I hope that they just stay as like those close friends, personally. Now, I agree that I think La'an might be the most interesting character because I just, as I was watching back through this, you guys, I started asking myself, where is La'an? She is definitely ga'an for too la'ang. And I think that she may have put in a call to the shepherds because she's like, hey, I'm going to go check the perimeter, right? And then she's just gone for like a big chunk of this episode. And then the shepherds show up and they're like, where did these guys come from? So does that kind of make it possible that she's a temporal agent because this comet seems to have foreknowledge of the future and she's like giving all these suggestions like, hey, let's not destroy them, let's regroup. Like, if we watch it through the lens of is La'an a spy, then I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for her character. And this is the seed that I had spoken of earlier, Cam, because like, what better way to get at the Spock and Kirk lineage, right, than to use a Khan descendant or whatever it is that she is, but like with time stuff involved. I don't know. It's a thing that just happened to pop into my head right before we started recording. But I 100% agree. Give me more Chapel. I want Chapel to interact with everyone. I don't care what they're doing. I just want Chapel to be involved.
Jesse is single-handedly supporting the red string industry.
Glad to do it.
Zoe, which character are you looking most forward to?
What do you think they make those shirts out of, Cameron? Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Go ahead, Zoe.
So Nurse Chapel actually was my second choice. It'd be interesting to see because her personality in this series is quite different than the original series. It makes me think that sometime between in the past, like when she's new on Enterprise, and later on when Kirk is in command, she experienced some serious trauma that kind of dampened down her aggressive and bubbly personality as we see on this show. So it would be definitely interesting to learn about that. But the one I want to see the most is number one, because firstly, she's a legacy character, but from before Kirk became captain of the Enterprise, and he is probably Christopher Pike's oldest comrade. Second is I just found out that her name was Una, like not just now on this podcast, but like, I was just flipping through the internet. I was doing research on another project, and it was showing ads for Star Trek, and it said Una. And I was like, oh, who the hell is Una? I don't understand it. Then I was
Una.
Yeah, and then I realized, oh my God, it's like Una is like the feminine for the male Uno. I was like, that's why he calls her number one. It's not just because she is his first officer. It's also because that's her name. Oh my God, my brain is going to explode with this knowledge. It's like, it's one of the original characters that we know least about that has appeared on a previous version of Star Trek. So, and as we see her character developing, I can't wait to see what more we haven't stored. Did you guys see the Trek shorts that featured her and Spock? So that kind of dovetail into this episode because they can both sing, but she doesn't really want people to know about it. And the other thing was that, and that kind of dovetails into when Uhura was singing to the egg when they figured out that the language was music. And she started singing and she says that, well, I need you to back me up. I need you to harmonize. And I need you to match me. And only Spock could, because I was wondering, is Spock going to sing again? Is he going to do it? He does it. I was like, yes, Spock sings. And that was great. And also it was incredible. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. What is Una's last name? I want to know. Don't tell me now. I'll find out in the episodes. But like, that's the thing running through my mind. What is her last name right now? I only know her name is Una. Is that a mononym? I need to know more about that character.
Well, you may find that out next week, Zoe, because next week's episode, Ghosts of Illyria, is actually specifically about Una, and she's going to need to help save the crew from some kind of space madness.
Yes. Gotta love good space madness.
So to that point, and to Agent Scott's point, it does definitely seem like each episode is going to be about a different crew member, and and how. I mean, in this episode, it was definitely Spock who had the biggest impact on Uhura. I feel like last week's it was about Pike, yes, but it was about La'an, that we got a lot of La'an backstory, and she was convinced to stay on the Enterprise. And that made me kind of wonder, like, is every episode going to be like that? And is it going to be a Mr. Holland's Opus thing? Is it going to be a Captain Pike's Opus, where at the end, yes, he suffers his fate, we all know he's going to suffer, but then, like, he is reminded of, like, all the lives he impacted along the way. That he shepherded through their Starfleet careers,
and they all hold a huge concert for him at the end, sitting there in his little life support chair.
They sing the Comet song. The Comet comes and sings for them.
Somebody writes a part for him at the end where he just does a beep.
Beep.
Yeah.
So if we get 10 seasons of this show and then they sort of like subvert expectations by having him get injured and end up in that chair anyway, I would be okay with that if they spend 10 full years giving me this crew. And I think we would be remiss not to say, like, I need to know more about Ortegas, because it's hard to mention all of the characters in enough time. I had a ton of fun with Hemmer as well in this episode, and you guys, that very cool carrot over the back trick, I reversed that footage. That's just him throwing Spock a carrot, and they played it backwards. Yeah.
Nice. I love those.
Thanks for ruining the magic, Jesse.
You're welcome.
I am looking forward to seeing Mbenga's episode, because I don't think it's going to be Una who convinces Pike to not give in to what he perceives as his fate. I think it's going to be Mbenga who finally gets through to him. Also, not in this episode at all for some reason. It was Chapel who runs in to get Kirk, and I was a little surprised not to see him at dinner or anywhere.
Well, I was telling Jesse that I was surprised Kirk doesn't get a beat at the end, and I was wondering if that was a deleted scene that would also maybe have featured Mbenga.
Yeah, let's spend some time in the egg chamber. Jesse, I'm going to disagree with you, because La'an was not off nowhere. She was busy being a total dick to Uhura this entire episode. I was like, what crawled up your butt? And why are you so mean to her?
I have that answer.
Oh, yeah?
But do you have more?
Nope. That's where I want to start. So.
That is an amazing segue, because what I wanted to bring up, which Scott kind of mentioned also, is, let's talk about like how this episode fits in with last episode too. For one, I love that we finally got, because I kind of mentioned this to you guys last time, the first episode, as much as I enjoyed it, and as much as I enjoyed like the classic feel, like, oh, we're at a very Earth-like planet, it wasn't really a Strange New World. We had familiar new worlds last episode for the pilot episode of Strange New Worlds. This episode, we got strange and new in abundance. We got like a weird world down here with the desert people. We got the Comet people. We got the shepherds. It's amazing. Love it all. Also, it really plays so nicely from the first episode, because if you didn't see the first episode, all that stuff in the egg chamber would have been fine. It would have been fine. But knowing what we know about La'an, knowing that she is a survivor, that she is a scrapper, that she does anything to get out of a situation, and here she is having to rely on on a cadet that she doesn't know, that she doesn't trust. She has no power in the situation, no control, and that discomfort is all over her face. And it's just a couple shots. Like, they could have been more on the nose with it, and I'm glad they didn't. It's just a couple of reaction shots where you're like, this is not good for her. La'an is not happy about the situation
No, she's
at all.
not.
No.
Oh, and here's the thing. She could have helped. It's when Uhura asked for her to sing, she said, oh, no, I can't do it. I'm too monster for that.
Well, again, she has no skill set that will help them in this situation.
I know how to shoot
and that
guns.
is not... Yeah. Like, give me an alien to shoot and I will help us in the situation. But no.
And she's not afraid to admit that. And another point there is that she is sort of operating on the opposite assumption that most main characters do in a show, which is that I could die at any moment. Like, that's her stated, like, modus operandi, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, though, she is actually set up to be the example of how a Starfleet officer should be, right? Because Uhura's like, oh, do I belong? Is this the right place for me? Like, ow, getting a hypo spray hurts. And like, people are flirting and this makes me feel weird. And like, did I wear the right uniform? And La'an's like, just take the shot and let's go. Whenever you guys are done crying about how much it hurts, let's do the job that we're here to do.
Love it.
Okay?
Yeah, the use of Uhura this time as the audience surrogate is less. They didn't do it the same way they did with Pike last time. This time it was, okay, you're the person who's in this situation and you're like, I'm the only sane one here. These two over here are flirting. I'm on a freaking comet. There's an egg chamber in front of me. I'm the only one freaking out. And that makes sense because this bimbo next to me, he just got shocked and launched halfway across the room. This is our dumb friend Sam trying to help me out and get me to talk to this thing. Just got himself killed for a minute.
I kind of love Sam too. Like, he was kind of being the most supportive for her. He immediately gets taken out of the picture and she's stuck with like the emotionally distant Vulcan who's trying to pep talk her, and La'an who has wants nothing to do with her.
Yeah. And at first I was like, oh wow, this Sam and Uhura dialogue feels really forced. I'm like, no, that's how you do it when you're trying to bring somebody into a situation. Like, sometimes it comes off as really forced.
Okay, so I am not the first person to view the Enterprise as the best department to work in at the greatest company ever, right? And it goes here that Uhura's coworkers are like, dude, you got hired. Relax. Like, you can do the job. Relax. That's why we have you here. And it just, to your point of the shifting audience avatar, right? It really, everybody has been in that situation where in their head, they're like, I know I have the skills and the ability to do this, but if I could just borrow some confidence from somebody who has done it and I have watched do it, that would be great, right? And so Sam in particular is a xenoanthropologist, right? So he's like, hey, it's languages. You do languages, remember? Like, it's just another pattern. Look at yes, pick up you're right there. It's almost like he went, the right thing to do here is to get myself killed and let her succeed. Like, he's the ultimate mentor. Like,
yeah. He, at the same time, he kind of reminds me of the first officer of the Cerritos on lower decks. He does. It's like a strong resemblance. Even looks like him a little bit.
Yeah. And also, I think maybe he was just a little distracted because he's like, man, that was some great flirting between me and Pike in the ready room there talking about the mustache. And nobody in any of our audio clips sent in anything about like, wow, that moment of flirting was just as obvious as Chapel was Spock.
Well, I love that because Pike does that a couple times where like when he's debating like a big decision, a big question, when he's captaining, you know, he has these weird asides that you might like, that Agent Scott might call quippy, but I think they're like just kind of the way he kind of distracts himself while he's processing big information is to kind of just like, oh, you know what, Spike? There it is. You know what, Spock? She has a point. Yeah. Oh, how's that mustache hanging? Like, yeah, it seems like a fun little quirky Pike.
He knows how to humanize himself. Like, I need to be in charge, but I need everybody to be loose and thinking on their feet. And like, hey, yes, this is a tense situation, but like, apply your regular process to it. Just trust yourselves. Like, we can do it.
and I don't know how many conference meetings you guys have sat in your lives and careers. I've sat in a lot. Safety meetings every morning at work. I mean, and then meetings throughout the day. Yeah, that's not unlike how it goes. Like, yeah, it'll just be talking, and then it's like, fun little aside comment, break the ice, release tension. Just you spend so much. You're trapped in this submarine with these people, and you get to know them very well. Mm-hmm. Happy 297th anniversary to the game Yahtzee. Congratulations for surviving the Third World War and the eugenics wars, while 600,000 species of plants and animals did not. Just hats off to you.
We had our priorities sorted, okay?
My favorite part was how Spock is like, I'm familiar with Yahtzee. And now I'm just picturing Spock and Michael playing Yahtzee as kids. And now I'm thinking about that scene in Discovery 2 where they have the argument over three-dimensional chess. How amazing would it have been if that had been over Yahtzee instead?
And, I mean, somebody is going to start an online RPG group where you're playing Enterprise characters playing Yahtzee, and that's all you do in the RPG.
Oh, and let's not forget about his mother, Amanda. I imagine that all three of them would probably be playing together.
Oh, yeah.
She was a big Yahtzee head.
Right.
And I would also like to say that I feel where Mahanit is coming from. I, too, played Myst a lot as a kid. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to set my whole self up where you have to play the right musical notes to open up the egg and then the different musical notes to drop the shields. I'm like, I know this game. I've seen this game. Like, good for you, Mahanit.
I do love this episode a lot. And I think I enjoyed episode 1 more just because there's more stuff. There's Spock and T'Pring and Pike in his cabin. But I think this is the better structured episode. I still think like both episodes kind of had cracks in the third act. And like for here, it started with, like Uhura's like, oh, let me take this. And she drops the shields. And I'm like, what is she doing? We've just learned that this thing speaks in music and now she can give it commands. Like, what did she do? It never explains what exactly she did.
I mean, I think that's supposed to be she's called a prodigy. And she talks about, I learn languages fast. I learn languages because I need to. And then they just show her doing it. And so, to the point of...
She literally just spoke to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And one of our commenters, we didn't get a chance to call in, but Jesse, what did our friend write?
So our friend Tammy Matthews on Twitter at GeekGirlDen said, fantastic. I love this episode. Uhura reminded me of Ensign Sato from Enterprise. Loved that music was the solution. Nice tie-in writing-wise with the Enar's precognition comments during dinner. Great acting by everyone. 5 stars. Art direction is reminiscent of the original series while seeming new. I love this show.
So that sounds like you in your comment on our last episode.
Yeah, and speaking of art direction, that opening shot with the aliens, and I would just say that the producers came to play. I mean, the costumes that the aliens wore, the alien makeup, it was all just fantastic. They were all living in structures that looked like teepees. It was just, I was blown away. I was like, oh wow, they went all out. It's not just bumps in the forehead anymore. They really... Yeah, and skin tight suits. It was, and the suits the robes that they wore were all intricately designed. They just weren't like plain colored. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and they looked practical for a desert planet. Like, yes, you're wearing a lot of layers to keep the sun off, but the layers are kept off of them so they can actually get ventilation through there. I was very impressed with those costumes.
We're just going to overlook the fact that suddenly introducing a whole lot of water to an alien species that has adapted for the desert. I mean, it makes sense because
those aliens are going to have, yeah.
The xenobiologist was unconscious, so he wasn't there to tell them that this is not a good thing.
Those poor Persephonids are right in the middle of making dust butter when it starts to rain for what appears to be maybe the first time ever.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty sure it's not the first time ever because they were celebrating the rain, so they know what it is and they like water. Oh. But how much rain are they going to get? Like a little bit of rain. It's fine, yeah, but a comet full of rain, it's questionable. I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of people drowning to death.
They're not going to drown to death because they are the children of the comet. They are going to, they just started a new faith. And I think that is the last part of the faith in this episode is the kind of thing. A comet appeared in the sky. The water started to fall. The plants started to grow. That is the foundation of a religion right there.
I did not pick up on that. Good job, John. Good.
there are so many instances of children being touched by the comet in this. That was weird phrasing.
Where did the comet touch you? Show
Maybe
me.
more than one group of children could be considered the children of the comet in this episode. But yes, I love that particular interpretation, and I think that's actually probably the main one, right? Maybe the second one being the shepherds, which are like, we just do whatever we do because we were told. And maybe that third group is now the Enterprise crew, because I gotta say, is there a chance now that Pike starts chasing these harbinger comets across the sector, like Moby Dick sort of a thing?
No, we don't need another Red Angel situation.
But to that point, we know that somebody created these things and preordained some stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think it's possible. It makes it possible that La'an is a temporal agent, or that there's some kind of time travel manipulation, temporal Cold War stuff going on here.
I'm actually glad that there are some unanswered questions at the end of this episode. They still ask who built the comet, like where did it come from? Nobody knows. The shepherds don't know. They're just doing what they've been doing for thousands of years. So yeah, I am glad that there are some things that we don't know, and I don't feel like we need to know. But I do think that because the comet seems to be precognizant, maybe it has something to do with time travel, to Jesse's point. It's like there were people from the future, and there were things that needed to happen. So one of the tools that they used were comics that they scattered throughout the universe to make these things happen.
Conveniently enough, right after a alien engineer with precognitive abilities shows up, that like, yes, this is a thing that exists.
I loved that comment. That's exactly what I picked up on this episode. It's something that, like, obviously all TV shows try to do, and I feel like Star Trek especially has always tried to do, is layer their themes together in an episode. And they don't always successfully succeed at it, as we've discovered going through TNG one episode at a time. But when they do, it's amazing, and I feel they nailed it in this episode because, not only does like Himmer's little introduction that doesn't seem to apply to the rest of the episode set up the idea of precognitive sight, which applies directly to the comet, which then in universe, they apply to Pike's predicament. But what I love is that it also applies to Uhura, because the audience, we are kind of like Mahanet here. We know Uhura's fate. We know that she has a fate, that her arc has a final outcome. Well, maybe we don't know the final outcome, but we know the long bend of her arc. She does not. No one on the show thinks that her fate is written in stone. We, the audience, are the only ones who see that. So it's so fascinating, like watching her at these crossroads, knowing where they'll lead, like the comet knows. I just think there's something there that kind of tied in with everything else that the episode smartly did not like hammer too on the nose. It just let us figure out. I mean, you could even apply the same to Sam Kirk, whose eventual fate is foreshadowed in this episode.
And the trajectory of Uhura is altered in this episode, and she gets more locked into being Starfleet. The trajectory of the comet is altered and saves the planet and brings life instead of ending life. And Pike doesn't believe that the trajectory of his fate can be changed. And so like you said, they layered the themes expertly in the writing of this episode.
In that sense, very well written episode.
Yeah.
I think the final subtle layer there actually is choice, right? Because choice is required for faith and belief in fate, or to not believe in that, or to, believe I am in control of what I'm doing. And Una is begging Pike to just choose to interpret what he has seen in another way. She's not saying, hey, what you saw was invalid or wrong, or you shouldn't think that. She's just saying, maybe there's more than one way to look at it, which is, a conversation that if you don't trust the person you're having that conversation with could get ugly quickly, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think the choice aspect of faith and how that applies was very subtly and well woven into this story as well.
Yeah, and then the point about Uhura being Sato. I'm still new to Enterprise. Yeah. But I mean, because I had kind of pointed out the Geordi connection just in the, the eagerness, the cool aspect. But here we do get that nervousness that we get in Sato, which I loved. That shot of Uhura, like, just down the hallway, hesitant to step into the transporter room. I loved that shot. It just spoke so much to her character, her like her like sudden fear when she's being transported, like, which then turned into like, giddy ecstasy when she realizes it worked and she's on a comet. Like, it was all so good.
That might be one of my favorite shots in the series to this point, of her
hyperventilating as the transporter goes off, because like this is a thing that we have all seen, no exaggeration, 10,000 times on a screen. Right? This is the most routine Star Trek thing you can do, is beam down to a location.
Even though there's a malfunction, every 10 episodes.
Yes, I was going to say.
That's how we discover the mirror universe.
Right. Her fears are not invalid. Right?
Right. She gives us how we would feel the first time we got beamed anywhere, let alone the surface of a frigging comet. Right?
Yeah, I don't think the beaming itself was something that she was afraid of. It's where she was going, oh, we're going to
being on an away team
to a surface of a comet, which might or might not put its shields up on the way to the comet. And then they had this
I'm relying on this mean blonde lady to have injected me with something that's going to protect me from solar radiation.
Right. And then there's a shot of the tracking through space, which they've never done before. And I imagine that is the feeling of the transporter going through space and then being on the surface of the comet. I was like, oh, this is great. Mm-hmm. This is like 2001 Lights, right?
Yeah. I mean, these are beats that like classic Trek rarely gave us, and I'm so excited that we're seeing these, like the cadets like dealing with these routine things we've seen 10,000 times. But of course, the first couple times, not going to be routine. I mean, that's what I liked about Enterprise, is that it dealt with that. Like the first time a lot of these things were done.
It's like, no, I'll take a shuttle. No, I'm good.
Yeah, that first time you have to strip down and get in that decontamination chamber. Like, what?
Right. There was like, it's safe for humans. Yeah, you do it then.
There's a lot of things that are safe for humans. But. All right. Our next entry on stage was another written in entry from Julene of the It Goes Down in the PM podcast. It seems like fate versus free will is going to be a recurring theme for this season. I think La'an is mad sus. She just gives lying vibes. I loved that music was the comet's language. This episode was just so interesting and gave the viewer a lot to think about. I like integration of philosophical problems like Pike knowing how he dies. It kind of puts him in a trolley problem, one versus many. Does he try to cheat death and fate to save himself, or does he die and save the kids? The idea of the comet knowing that it would need Spock to give life, but the crew not knowing what was going to happen, was very Schrodinger's cat. The comet was deadly and not deadly, like the cat is both alive and dead until the box is opened. And she compares it to something that I had forgotten about entirely, was the allegory of the cave from Plato, which I was like, I will freely admit, I had to go look back up. I'm like, oh yeah, I did read about that once. People knowing for sure there's more out there, that the crew of the Enterprise is the philosopher king, and that maybe the shepherds are more the people chained up in the cave, only seeing the shadows, but that's their whole world, so they live that life fully, and they dedicate themselves to that. So again, that was our friend Julene at It Goes Down in the PM, and the It Goes Down in the PM podcast, part of the Mom is Always Right, that's WRITE media network. And they have a few noteworthy shows, new shows, Bite Sexual, Two Dope Girls, and a show called Roast. And we will post their link tree in the show notes.
Yeah, Thank you for your contribution, Julene. I think my favorite thing about this series so far is that where like a Next Generation, for example, again, my favorite series, where a Next Generation would have Picard go, here is the philosophical problem that we are faced with, and then state both sides of the argument, and then say, I think it's clear which one is correct. This show is doing much more of a, okay, let's put that concept into everything that's happening. We'll have Pike make like some little remarks that humanize the entire arc and make it relatable, and then we'll just execute on the story beats, right? So they're just going through the philosophical exercise as opposed to talking about what do we think is the right thing to do here, because they have to figure that out as they do it in this episode. So I really like that, and it follows really well with the first episode in the series, where they're like, what do we do? How do we figure out how to not violate General Order 1 while also saving Una? But, so it's just a faster paced 45 minutes than TNG, but it's all of the best ingredients in the same recipe, right? It just tastes different on the other side.
Yeah, the pace really surprised me because, it didn't feel long, but it didn't feel like a short episode. Like, it felt like we got a long, involved episode with multiple layers.
Yeah.
But we also had, like, a nice, long cold open, seeing them at dinner, at the Slug Club going on there, even with the Weasley inside. So maybe it wasn't the Slug Club. But then we get all these like denouements at the end. And it felt like TNG never had time for that. Like right on Green Shirt, we always make a point where we're like, oh, look, they had a nice like moment at the end where they talk about the episode. Rarely does that actually happen. So I don't know how they fit all that into this episode. It's just, I think as Jesse was saying, the pace, they get the same kind of information out much quicker now. Let's talk about the music for a while. I do wish that, I guess there was a deleted line where Spock, when Uhura starts singing and it all lights up, where he goes, "This is no comet, it's a karaoke club." I wish they had left that in, but maybe a little on the nose. I did like there was the moment where, so I have a certain smart speaker in my house, and of course, as any Trekkie, I set it up for the wake word to be computer, which always causes some fun when I watch Star Trek, which is often. So Pike asked the computer, "What song is it? Is the comet singing?" Apparently, it was Uhura's Kenyan classical, hymn,
Folk song,
whatever. Yeah, no, my smart speakers thought it was Calvin Harris.
Oh,
so there was that. Just
actually, I don't have a lot to contribute as far as the music itself is concerned. It was just a neat element that they added to me. I think right now I'm thinking about the egg, but if I go all the way back, I thought it was brilliant that Uhura kind of introduces herself by humming her hymn. Like I think she uses it as an anchor, like when she's feeling unsure, insecure, because she already got hazed by the lieutenant going in dress uniform and nobody else is, right? So and she's trying to get along like with I forgot the alien engineer that's blind but he has extra sensors.
Hammer.
Right. So she had an awkward encounter with him, and she's also nervous because she's at the captain's dinner, and so I think that she uses music to kind of ease herself, to anchor herself. And I like how that theme kind of plays throughout the episode. And like she does it again when she's with the egg inside the comet. She starts to do that. And that's when the comet responds to her. So them finding out that music is what the comet uses to communicate is actually just a result of a nervous tick that Uhura had. They discovered it by accident. And the way they introduced it was absolutely brilliant.
I did enjoy at the dinner when Pike was asking his question and his pre-traumatic stress disorder kicked in, and it was a good subtle little moment, and it wasn't they're obviously hitting his story on the head very hard in this season, but that was just a nice quick little moment that we got to follow up with later with knowing the names of the kids. And then the final conversation between him and Una.
I also really like that, to Zoe's point, Uhura is using music to anchor herself emotionally and make herself feel comfortable. I think that's a thing that everyone in the world can associate with, and that's part of what makes her the audience stand-in in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, the music, I loved. I thought it was done very well. Like the whole Uhura Spock discussion of music as a language, it didn't feel overly techno-babbly to me. I bought all of it. These were some of my issues I had with the third act. There's a lot of moments Uhura's like, I don't know what, but I know the egg's important. Why is the egg important? Like, it opened, but it feels like the comet could have talked to him without opening the egg. I don't know why the egg was important.
Yeah.
It's her being in a room that doesn't make any sense because it's on a comet, and she's going, okay, I don't know what this all is, but the giant glowing orb in the center of the room probably
is all on this.
That's what she
That was
means.
about as obviously stated as when Spock shows them the video of the comet destroying the planet and then goes, based on this, there would be no survivors. Thanks, Spock. We needed that
We saw
Vulcan
it crack in
analysis.
half, dude. We're good. Like, we figured. Wow.
But and then the other thing was like, it just felt like obviously the music was a big deal. Like the whole pivot of the episode is Uhura realizing that she saved the day by discovering it speaks music, which it does save their lives. Like we said, she somehow just was able to tell it to drop the shields. But I thought it was going to be more important. I thought when Spock is like, what if we didn't touch it? Like they were going to use music. Like when he'd fly by, he was going to play music, maybe not the Beastie Boys, but somehow music would come into play in the final solution. And I was a little disappointed when it didn't.
Yeah, it was strange. Like, oh, we have a plan, but for some reason they're like, we're not going to tell the audience the plan. We're just going to show the plan in action. A little bit of a heist movie type vibe there with the end with the shepherds and Spock. But Yeah, it's like, wait, you just established all this music stuff, and it's like, okay, we're going to use heat and ice sublimation too.
We discovered we can talk to the comet and it listens to us, but instead we're just going to blast it with a heat gun and say that, oh, we didn't touch it. Like, come on, Pike. That was a pretty semantic, heavy excuse there.
Yeah, whatever works.
The shepherds were pissed that you were going to give it a little nudge, but cutting it in half will be fine.
Yeah, but they don't know that the Enterprise cut it in half. As far as they're concerned, from their perspective, the comet broke up by itself. Right. So,
which I did, like, they were able to detect that there was 3 people standing on the comet. They can't detect the heat signature from the shuttle blasting the comet in half.
And they seem to understand that there's some sort of technological something going on with the comets, right? Like the shepherds can tell that there is technology, and they know that the comet has some sort of control options at least.
Yeah.
They seem to have personified this comet, which you could argue makes it an artificially intelligent life form that they were standing on. And I don't know, it didn't bump me until you said it, but why was the solution not like more frequency vibrational based? Like, it didn't have to be music.
Yeah.
Right. It couldn't have been, it didn't have to be music, but it could have been like shield harmonics or, something like that. But
they already set that up earlier in the episode.
Yeah. And I think to your point though, it had to be heat because that might be the only way the sublimation in it is the lack of touching. It was the only way they could do it without setting off some sort of detector on the Shepherd ship. Maybe like, because heat just shows up as heat.
There's like, I kind of wanted to see more of these underground structures, right? Like I got a very The Dig, speaking of classic video game vibes from this episode, which, I don't know how great The Dig is. I don't even know if I ever finished it, but like the feeling playing that game was sort of like the feeling of Myst, just like discovering this ancient alien thing. It's a nostalgic feeling I always chase, and often in Star Trek episodes, right? I love that Strange New Worlds aspect of Star Trek. But yeah, I wanted to see more of that, and they could have done something like that. Oh, we're going to talk to this comet, and down below there's engines that'll turn on that'll break off a piece of ice. It's not a deal breaker, obviously, but it was a little thing I bumped on.
And regarding the final solution, whatever the solution was to the comet, I think that they kind of threw some elements in there early on, like the shield harmonics and the music and notes to communicate. I was also surprised that wasn't going to be involved in the final solution. But I think that the only reason that they needed to bring the shields down was to get Sam off of the comet. And really get all of them off of the comet, because Sam was dying. Like, it's like we totally forgot about Sam. Like, even when I was watching the episode, I was like, why are they going back? Oh yeah, Sam. Sam is about to die before it's
gotta
time.
save that mustache.
Yeah, we gotta save Sam. So they all beamed off, and it's like they really couldn't go back on. So they really needed another solution. So I don't think they wanted to telegraph the solution in the writing of the show. They didn't want to telegraph what they were going to do. And so that's like they did the heist thing where they didn't reveal what the plan was, as they might have done in the TNG era.
All right. Let's hear from our next multiple guests, one broadcast on stage.
What are we going to talk about? What if we run out of things to say in these 90 seconds?
No. They only gave us 90 seconds.
Okay. So no dilly-dally.
Open Pike Night. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. This is Dan, Patrick, and Jesse from the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Sending our comments into the Open Pike Night. We've only got 90 seconds.
It was very colorful.
Are you talking about the episode?
Yeah,
yes,
that's what we're talking
colorful.
about.
Yeah,
very colorful.
Children of the Comet.
And what'd you call Pike, Captain Pike?
I called him Space Daddy.
Space Daddy. Yeah,
Space Daddy. What's up with that hair? This episode's all about wanting to make Space Daddy happy.
Yeah, make Space Daddy happy, and Space Daddy's making me happy. So
Yeah.
And I like Uhura's totally rad.
Yes. Music is cool as communication.
Yeah.
What else? Quick, we've only got fucking 90 seconds. We got less than that. We got
how much time we have?
I don't know. I didn't put on a fucking timer.
Oh no, how do we know when we Oh my god.
It was great.
So loud.
The episode was really good. It was so entertaining.
Vulcans theorize it is their fundamental nature of music which makes them pleasing to... Wait, I did that totally wrong. Shit, I've messed up our 90
We have
seconds.
so much less time now.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Musical notes are easily derived from math. Vulcans theorize it is their fundamental nature which makes them pleasing to the ear.
All right, that was it. Okay, good.
All right, we will be having a note with the bartenders here at the Open Pike Night stage that the 2 drink tickets are given after their time on stage. That was Dan, Patrick, and Jesse calling in from the It's Got Star Trek podcast at It's Got Star Trek on Twitter.
I was more on the edge of my seat for that than I was for this episode. And I mean, this episode dealt with stakes well. So
that was the most on-brand message that we have received from another podcast, I think. I think I can confidently state that. I have to say, if you haven't, go listen to It's Got Star Trek. It is one of my favorite Star Trek podcasts. You know that I'm a big fan of all things Star Trek, so definitely go check those guys out. That's like a really good capturing of how it feels to watch Strange New Worlds. Like, I am just overwhelmed with enjoyment and looking at the shiny things and give me the colors. I mean, that really actually does capture about how I feel about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like the Pike is Space Daddy. It's like, of course, obviously Pike is Space Daddy. He's going to be, for this whole thing, it's going to be interesting to see, he had his moment with Uhura at the beginning of this episode, but it's not always going to be him inspiring the crew. And that's actually going to be a nice aspect. It's like, he's not always the one giving the inspirational speech, because he's really in not a great place right now. So it's good to see other crew members stepping up.
Sometimes he needs the pep talk.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to say, I did notice that the It's Got Star Trek crew took the time to communicate partially through musical notes. So we appreciate you sticking to the theme of the episode. That was very well done. And I have to say thank you again for that.
All right, let's hear from our final guest on stage tonight.
I have literally so many thoughts about Strange New Worlds. So I guess that what I'll stick with for the duration of this is just how utterly beautiful the episode Children of the Comet is. That we get to see Spock and Uhura have that little musical moment. It warms my heart so much. Like, that was one of my favorite moments in TOS, whenever we get to see them play together, sing together, those kinds of things. And we get denied that, sort of, in the Kelvin Timeline movies. So that they brought that back for this, really, like, that just tops everything for me. And then to be able to see Uhura in her, like, true element, when she doesn't even fully know yet that that's her element, it's just amazing. I'm utterly in love. I also low-key hope that we get to see more of the Shepherds in the future. I don't know if we will, but that'd be really interesting. I'd kind of like to see that. So, yeah.
That was our friend Brandy at Trekking Wonders on Twitter, and another guest on stage who got to go see the world premiere.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's great stuff. I guess I was just surprised by how much those scenes affected me. I got chills, especially that first scene between them. And I mean, yeah, I didn't know that, like, seeing the prequel aspect to these relationships I grew up with would work so well. And I think they handled them really well. Like, I had some complaints that episode 1 was a little on the nose, and I didn't really have any of those complaints with this episode. I think they let, like, the audience figure all that out. Like, the scene with Spock and her, talking about her future and everything, like, I brought to it, like, I know these two, their fates are intertwined. They're going to save each other's lives multiple times throughout the future. But right now, they don't know that. Spock is almost trying to convince her to leave Starfleet if she doesn't feel she belongs there. And yeah, that's when prequels are done right. Just when it lets what the audience knows fill in the emotional, like, electricity of the scene. And I feel like that's what those scenes did really well for me. I'd also like to say that seeing the crew at ease and in situations that are not life and death is imperative to these shows, is so important. And, like, you can't have the scene later where Spock is being like, is this your first life or death situation, without seeing them, like, have little social faux pas at dinner. So thank you for that. And then, yes, I also love the Shepherds. I haven't really said that. I love their design. I love the little breathing sacs on their head. Great stuff.
I did wonder, is that dinner scene sort of poking fun at TNG, DS9, and Voyager, and maybe even Enterprise, for rarely having, whenever the characters were gathered together, they play poker in their uniforms on TNG. Like, anytime they're gathered together, like, was this a little bit of a poking fun at, like, hey, guess what? They do have other clothes.
it may surprise you guys to know that the Star Trek fandom is nitpicky and arguing about this.
Wait, what?
I know. Breathe. Yes, on one hand, the word is uniform, and that means a thing. Like, that word has a definition, right? And it is that you all look the same. You're all wearing the same outfit. There is one form that you all wear. It is a uniform, right? Now, more realistically, in any workplace, even the military, or some cool version of the military, there are more than one kind of uniform for more than one kind of job and for more than one kind of division and for more than one kind of person. People would have personal preferences. There would be all kinds of things. This is the first time that we get to see multiple active duty uniforms happening at the same time, like probably on purpose. It used to probably usually be a screw up. And it makes it feel more realistic because people just wear different clothes. And then when we see people in their civilian outfits, they look like clothes that people would actually wear, not like the clothes they put people in TNG, where it was like they would go for comfort in the future, not whatever that is.
Leftover Logan's Run uniforms, costumes.
Yeah, like Chapel's outfit, first of all, and second of all, like, she looks so comfortable at the cookout in the captain's quarters. Like, that's how they would do it in the future. They're going toward comfort, not away from it.
Well, the only thing that was truly uncomfortable in TNG were the uniforms. Like especially the first season, like everything else was kind of like dresses. Like even the dress uniform in TNG originally was kind of a dress, right? Mm-hmm. So, they had, and you're right, the officers in TNG, or I think in pretty much any episode of the original series, they rarely wore like off-duty clothes. The only time they wore regular clothes was when they were on a mission. So that's not even, you really couldn't even call that regular clothes. Like they're chilling in the lounge in their uniform, like Jesse said. So the only instance I can remember, I know there are a couple, but the one that there's when Picard goes on Risa, there's that. And then there's that time when you had Captain Jellicoe, he takes over the Enterprise, and Riker is
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What you call it?
We won't get into too much detail, but yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. And he's
got his civvies on. Yep.
Riker's wearing kind of a dress. So they went for maximum comfort when they were off duty, right?
Yeah. But then on the flip side, you've seen shots of Geordi sleeping in his uniform, like in bed, just on side sleeping, fully in uniform. Like, really? Geordi? Like, I think
Geordi worked like 18 hours a day, and he was just taking a break in his 18-hour day.
That is
to catch
absolutely
a quick nap.
Yeah. That's a great explanation. That poor guy.
Because most other people, they had their purple undershirts, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you're right. You really get to see them wear dressed down for this episode. Yeah. And the other thing was, I remember back to your point, Jesse, about the services having different uniforms, even if they're in the same outfit. You really get to see that in the Star Trek original series motion pictures. So you had the engineering staff, and they all had their engineering uniforms. You had the non-commissioned officers; they're clearly wearing a different uniform than the officers. They really went in on people on this huge ship, the different departments or different sections having different uniforms.
I like that about Chapel's uniform in particular. Like it's not quite as formal because she's a civilian, right? So it's like pretty clearly some kind of a jumpsuit. They're not afraid to show us a zipper in this instance of Star Trek, which I think is great.
I really enjoyed going to the back to Dan, Patrick, and Jesse, the Daddy Pike, his laugh when he sees Uhura in dress uniform and totally understanding why she's in dress uniform. I'm like, okay, yep. It was good to see that. Oh yeah, he can appreciate, like, oh yeah, I was there, I remember that.
It was the kind of warm, relatable laugh where it's like, yes, I'm laughing at you, but I'm laughing at you because I identify with how that feels. Like,
it's also the great kind of world building without exposition. Like, that laugh, as John said, it tells you so much about, this is a thing that's happened since Pike was a cadet.
Yep.
It just kind of fills you in on the atmosphere of Starfleet in ways that you don't get a lot in Star Trek. Speaking of laugh, so let me say, Spock continues to impress me. I am enjoying it Ethan Peck's performance as Spock more and more, and I am so glad, like, my pre-show fears were allayed. I love that, what they're doing with him. I don't know if the laugh gag at the end was earned. That was like one bit of writing where I was like, that felt a little forced.
If we had seen what he's talking about, how something goes badly, because it's like, well, but what went badly? You succeeded in your mission. Like,
and survived.
Yeah, if we had seen him, like, you know, the camera just spinning around and around, he's like, whoa, after he was doing that, like, yeah, okay, then that would have been something to give us. Yeah. It's like, okay, you got bumped around a little bit, but so did the Enterprise, so did the shepherds flying through the ice trail of the Comet, which was a beautiful effect. Just seeing the little chunks bouncing off, like, but yeah, I noticed that too. Like, what went wrong?
I think it actually illustrates that Spock was afraid at that moment. But you know, Spock is not going. You're not going to get a lot of emotion in Spock. So had that been a human pilot in a shuttlecraft, you would have got all the emotion on his face about how harrowing the experience was. But you don't get that from Spock. It was only after, like, the whole experience is over that he's able to convey this in the form of what he figured was a joke. And it kind of reminded me of Data, when Data gave that fake laugh. And it's like, is that how you're supposed to do it? Is that how you're supposed to laugh?
Maybe it was just Spock intentionally trying to relate.
Yeah, yes. It was him going, here's when a human would do this thing. I will force it out. So
am I doing it right?
Right. So it may have been,
okay, maybe.
It may have been in-universe forced. Like, yeah, okay. I that's how I read it, Zoe. I appreciate that you brought that up.
Okay, final nitpicky bump. And I don't know how nitpicky this is, because they explicitly say, La'an, the tactical officer, says, we are outgunned, we are outnumbered, we need to disengage. This is a losing fight, this is a Tora situation. And then one phaser blast, the Shepherds have no shields, one phaser blast, and they have to withdraw to regroup. I feel like the Enterprise was like moments away from battle victory right there if they wanted.
So first, I got to say, how great are the continuous phasers? They are red, which is, you know, another thing that's being nitpicked. Shouldn't they be yellow? But I love the continuous phasers. They seem like a cutting beam to me, how they should.
Yeah, a little bit of a fiber laser. Yeah, like I liked that.
But the next thing that La'an says, Cameron, is they're pulling off to regroup. I'd say we have about a minute.
Well, yeah, so but a minute to like, again, they were purposefully not trying to damage them. They were just trying to take out their.
Now,
I just don't know why they didn't have shield.
So I would, and I don't know. I mean, I think they shot at the shields. I don't know, to answer your question. I thought for a minute that La'an was like trying to do something sneaky. Like, we need to.
You always
not
think
attack
La'an's
them.
trying to do something sneaky.
She
Jesse.
is doing something sneaky. She adopted prey posture way too easily. I don't trust her. But it seems like Una verified La'an's assessment. So it's a fair question, because La'an was like, well, we don't want to, or actually it was Ortega's assessment. Ortegas goes, we don't want to piss them off. And Una was like, that's true. We don't.
Yeah.
So it's a fair thing, but I would also say, like, you're watching TNG now, so you know sometimes the answer is because the writers needed that to happen.
That's why it's nitpicky.
Yeah, but could have did it another way. I was the same way. I was like, oh, they have no shields. They have no chance. It's like, how is this a threat if they don't have shields? I know they got lots of weapons, but without shields, it's only going to take a couple of photon torpedoes to take them out.
Well, there is something to be said for the scale of the Shepherd ship. Like, it is huge.
Yeah.
Right? So it's possible that they were like, hey, ow, okay, readjust shields, let's go kill them now. Like,
right. That's true. And I don't fault you on that. But you know, you got engines, you got shielding that can be targeted. But see that I'm just saying that I was surprised that it didn't have shields. That's all. I feel that
agree.
If they wanted to write in such a way that the Shepherd had to back off the Enterprise, then they could have just damaged their shields to the point where, you know, they couldn't the shields couldn't sustain any more damage. It could have been something like that.
The Enterprise uses their tractor beam to like throw some ice chunks at them. Damage their shields. Like,
but they definitely made the right tactical choice. It's like, these guys are protecting Mahanit. Get between them and Mahanit. Like,
I like that.
Yeah. You know, which, you know, obviously if you look at, you know, a parent, you know, a mama bear, a mama moose, like, well, that could be a really bad decision or it could be the right decision. And they got lucky that it was the right decision this time.
Kind of going back to Uhura's fate, there was a lot of cute moments where she was watching whoever the comms person was. They named her once, I forget.
This was Ensign Christina?
Yes. There's shots of Uhura watching her do her job that I thought were kind of just intentionally in the background. That was really nice. I like. And then I just want to point out that when Spock has to diffuse his tension, he likes to apply vigorous logic.
There's
also leave that out there.
There's also an instance of Uhura doing Ensign Christina's job for her, where she goes, "Hey, I think we're being hailed," and she goes, "Oh, yes, we're being hailed."
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
so
I really liked that moment.
Showing the natural inclination for Uhura, not only toward languages, but maybe toward that particular console.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Final thought. The only thing that's a little sad for me is that we know that Uhura would spend her entire career on that ship, right? Maybe with very little variation in her career, which is not something that most people would do.
We did get confirmation in season 2 of Picard that Uhura eventually becomes captain of the USS Leon Dragance, and she was maybe the first command that Ensign Jean-Luc Picard ever served under.
They decided to finally do something with Uhura now that she is no longer on screen.
Yeah. Okay, so I have decided as showrunner that we are going to start ranking these episodes, but this isn't going to be just giving it a number rank. This is going to be ranking the episodes against each other. So, Zoe, was episode 2 better or worse than episode 1? How would you rank these 2 episodes for yourself?
Oh, that's a hard question. I don't. Just because this episode was an Uhura episode, opened up with Uhura's log, Ensign Uhura opening the log instead of the traditional opening the episode with the captain's log. And just because the actor, forgive me, I don't remember her name, but the actor that played Uhura did such a fantastic job of displaying all the emotion of uncertainty and worry and elation and all of those things. I think I got to give this episode a notch over the premiere episode.
All right, Jesse.
That again, it is difficult, but I don't like. How do you capture the fun of watching a first episode of a new Star Trek series again? Right, like as far as an episode of TV, I think this one is a better episode of TV, like structurally and with all the pieces in it, and it is making me want to watch more of this TV, which again the last episode did as well. But it's like I am very excited for what is to come, and I think I'm just going to give you my blanket ranking for every episode that we watch going forward, which is that as episodes come out, that's my favorite episode. So
yeah, and at the end of the season, I'm going to hold you to the fire.
Seriously. Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Apply that going forward, and then at the end of the season, make me put them in order, because right now I'm not going to be able to do it for emotional reasons. I'm just too excited.
And I hope you're right.
And Cam?
Yeah, I mean, kind of echoing Jesse, I do think this is probably the better written episode, but I think going forward, I'll probably revisit the first one a little bit more, just because, again, there's more variety going on. It was our introduction. It was us discovering what this show would be. And like the first one there were some genuine laugh out loud moments from me in the first one that I loved. And my wife was disappointed that Spock wasn't shirtless in this one. So that, that might factor in as well. I'll go episode 1.
There are a couple things about this episode that I'm going to rank it higher than episode 1. Partly it's not the first episode and doesn't have to do the heavy lifting I talked about last time. I think it was a very, superbly written episode. And we haven't talked about it yet, but the final scene after the conversation between Una and Pike, when he calls up the records of who he knows to be important in his future, I love episode endings like that. I don't know if anybody watched back in the day the show Jericho, but there's one episode that has an ending like that where it just is like very, very subtle, but just silently driving home how big what happened was. Like, you finally start to understand the scope of what went down as they're establishing the world of this show. Like, just pulling up pictures of these actual kids at this point in the timeline. That's like, ooh, that, I don't know, are you trying to make this decision harder for yourself, Pike, or what are you trying to do?
Well, yeah, I love that moment because at first I was like, oh, he took her advice. He's looking them up to see like how he can, change the course of history.
Yeah.
And then as that scene went on, I was like, oh no, he's recommitting to his choice.
He's whipping the back. He's whipping himself with the rope on the back. I do love that kind of ending. Just very emotionally impactful ending to an episode. So yeah, this is definitely a better episode for me than episode 1. Thank you for joining us for another Open Pike Night. Jesse, now that we're 20% of the way through season 1 of Strange New Worlds and Open Pike Night, how can our listeners get on stage and share their thoughts, feelings, or jokes about Strange New Worlds?
Well, of course, the easiest way to do that is to just record yourself for 90 or fewer seconds. I'm still not sure what the correct word is for that, and I'll figure it out because I'm the show's pedant. But the easiest way to do it is record your own voice and then email that voice clip to openpike@gmail.com. We want to share your voice with your own words because I really think that that's part of what makes Trek so enjoyable is the community that exists around it. So go ahead and do that. If you'd like to follow the show on Twitter, you can follow me. I run the Twitter for the show at Open Pike. And at the top of that page, as John mentioned earlier, there is a button that says subscribe or start reading. I'm not sure which one. But if you click on that, you will automatically be signed up to get a weekly reminder in your email. They go out at about 2 a.m. on Friday morning, I think, after the episode airs. I don't put spoilers in them, but I do say, hey, now that you've watched the episode, send us your thoughts. And there is a sneak peek at who the next week's guest will be in that email. So those of you that have received it, you already knew that we would be talking to Zoe of Backlook Cinema this week because you read it in your newsletter. Remember, go check your spam folder or your junk folder because I assure you our newsletter is neither. Now, after all of that, if you're still feeling generous, sure, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. But of course, just like Mr. Spock, your ears, for us, are enough.
And if you've noticed, if you've been listening, you may have, that both of our guests so far began as audio contributors. So if you would like to appear on the show, be sure to send us a clip and let us know that is your fate that you are headed towards.
I will say this. If you are just a podcast listener, you do not have to be a podcaster. We want to hear from the Trek community.
Yes.
If you're a podcaster, obviously you have access to audio recording equipment a little easier than somebody who doesn't. But if you have a smartphone, it'll record an audio clip just as well. We want to hear from as many people as possible. I would love to have to start curating clips and choosing, who gets to make it on stage or not. And maybe sometimes I got to cut our regulars because we have new people.
And to that point, John, anybody who is signed up for our weekly newsletter will also receive priority in weeks where we have too many clips to share.
Yes.
So we want you to be aware that there is more than one way to get on stage. But yes, John has an excellent point. We're not just here to promote other podcasters. That is something we believe in as podcasters. But if you just want to have your voice heard, we want to be your stage.
Speaking of being a stage, Zoe, how can people find more of you online?
You can follow us on social media at Backlook Cinema on Twitter, at Backlook Cinema Podcast on Facebook or Instagram. You can also visit us on our website at backlookcinema.com. And I have a shop there. I've got some new designs for our merchandise and t-shirts and hats and sweatshirts and stuff. But most importantly, my podcast, the Backlook Cinema Podcast, you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts where I talk about the movies of yesteryears from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Me and Zach, who is my son, my clone, if you will. We sit down, we watch movies that I loved when I was growing up, and I share our thoughts about those movies on the podcast.
And you just completed talking about Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, and Star Trek 4. So there is some great Trek content for you to go back and listen to.
Yes, and if you want to, I'm also going to talk some more about Trek. I have a future appearance on a new podcast called Pardon My Fandom. It's hosted by Rocky, and he examines people's fandoms, and I get to talk to him about my fandom of Star Trek. So that's going to come out in a couple of weeks, so I hope everybody tunes in for that one.
Excellent.
Nice.
Cameron, where can people find more of you?
I am a Star Trek green shirt, at least when it comes to the Next Generation. We are in season 5 now, but come join the ride. It's a lot of fun, more fun than a malfunctioning holodeck. You can find our podcast probably wherever you're listening to this podcast. At GreenShirt87, we'll find us on Twitter, GreenShirt Podcast on Facebook, GreenShirt Podcast on Instagram.
Yep.
And that's where you'll find us.
And Jesse, where can people find more of you?
I would just first like to say thank you, Zoe, for being here with us, and I hope you feel compelled and a little bit obligated to send us a clip every single week as you're watching through Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because we want to know what you think as well, because, man, I've had a lot of fun, so thank you for being here with us. Second of all, if for whatever reason you need me more in your ears, go to the podcast app that you are listening to right now. Pull up the search feature. Type in Sudden But Inevitable. We will pop up. Sudden But Inevitable, of course, is the single-season television rewatch podcast where I bring my friends through the most essential shows that I think they need to see. And it's all about whether or not they enjoy that process. So you can follow that show on Twitter at Sudden But. You can follow that show on Instagram at Sudden But Inevitable Podcast. Or you can watch it every Friday night live at youtube.com/twistmyarmpodcast at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time.
And to find more of me, I am at John T. Bolds on Twitter, and I am Producer John on Green Shirt, a Newbie's Trek to the Next Generation with Cameron. Well, it's time for us to close up the club for the night. Please change your trajectory out the exit door, and be sure to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here.
And don't take the Yahtzee dice with you. Leave them here for the next patrons.
Today, we have been, quite simply, the only people for this job.